What's up, guys? Max here with an update of the game that everyone's trying to play over the past week and over past couple of weeks, and it's the Street Fighter V beta. Many of you guys remember the Street Fighter V beta initially launched with a whole bunch of problems. We talked a lot about its netcode and them working stuff out, and it looks like they are going to be getting back into the heat of things this week, because on Friday there was an internal stress test where they didn't really publicly say that you could play Street Fighter V beta, but if you logged in on Friday, you could absolutely play it and then play people online from across the world. This was actually the best opportunity for you to get matches because matches were happening very fast. The quality of connections, though, is kind of the bigger issue with the game right now because Street Fighter V is not currently regionally matchmaking. And I want to give you guys an update on why, if you did get to play the game, a lot of your connections might not have felt very good. The biggest issue with fighting games is that they are severely limited by the distance between the opponents and how good your ping is, meaning how long it takes your information to get to somebody else. And since Street Fighter V is in its current beta state right now, that means that they're not actually doing proper regional matchmaking. They're doing any matchmaking. They're just trying to get you paired up with somebody else across the entire world. So I was getting a lot of matches where I was going up against guys in the UK, I was getting some from the US, I was getting some from like New Zealand, and it was just all over the place. There was no control, and the worst one was with a guy from Hong Kong, and it was just absolutely everywhere. A lot of hitching, a lot of jumping. What you'll run into with a game that has net play or rollback netcode that is trying to deal with a bad connection is you're going to see this thing called a rollback, which is where characters start jumping around a whole bunch. The game's going to do its best to not allow you to have a lot of delay in between your inputs to what's going on the screen, but if there's a bad connection, it will get pretty choppy and pretty jumpy. Now, there is something you can do about this, because the other times I did get paired up with the majority of folks that were within the same region as I, which was the Americas, I was getting really good connections. Guys in Mexico, guys around Canada, guys in the USA. It was feeling pretty good, and I was actually very happy with it. I only wish that I can specifically tell the game to only matchmake me in that way, which is absolutely gonna happen later on when the game comes out, and there's official ranked and all this big stuff for the title. So right now, because we're in this beta state of Street Fighter V, there's a few things that you should probably do just to be sure that you can maybe get the best connection possible with somebody that is overseas, whether it's the US overseas or overseas back to us. Either way, here's a couple of tips. The first one is pretty big, and it is kind of hard to deal with depending on how your house is laid out. Do not use a wireless connection when playing fighting games online. It adds a little bit of extra lag on top of the lag, and just makes it even more difficult for you to have a solid connection. There's a thing called packet loss, which is data loss as your signal is transmitted to your wireless router, and that information goes like thousands of miles across an ocean to reach somebody, or even across the block. It doesn't matter. If you have a lot of packet loss, and that usually can come as a result of bad wireless connections, that is going to interrupt your fighting game experience heavily. It will not be fun. You'll get a lot of jittering, and you'll get a lot of stuttering. The other thing that you can possibly do is make sure that your connection is not being hogged up by something crazy that takes a lot of data. Whether it's download or upload, upload is extremely important in this situation. If you use torrents, if you're uploading to Dropbox, anything like that, putting a video on YouTube, I highly do not recommend it. Some fighting games can handle this really well, and sometimes even with other fighting games like Killer Instinct, I've been uploading to YouTube. I tried actually using and resource hogging the heck out of my connection, and they've really optimized Killer Instinct's netcode because the game is actually officially out. And since Street Fighter V isn't officially out yet, and they're still working on this Kagemusha netcode, which is this new thing that they're really trying to make the best online experience, I can see where they're going with it right now, but it still does need a lot of work, which is why, as we know, this is a beta, it is not an official release. And even if you're in some of these matches right now, there's one happening tonight and like the one on Friday, where you can get a couple of games with people and you actually have an opportunity to play a bit. This isn't even the official beta. This is just a stress test on the servers so that when the beta does officially launch again and Capcom's like, here, we're going to let everybody in, everyone that knows about it, they're going to make a big public thing about it. And at that point, there's going to be way more traffic than we're looking at right now, because this is just something that's word of mouth. So if you want to try to look into Street Fighter V, I'd highly recommend following my channel, following me on Twitter. I will let you guys know when and if the beta is live, and right now, because these are stress tests, you can expect a lot of disconnects. Probably a lot of funky matches before the official beta comes back. The only thing I do really hope is that later on when the beta does come back in an official regard, we see maybe a couple more characters. I really just want them to freaking let me play Ken. I would not stop playing if Ken was actually playable. I'm telling you guys, he's probably one of the most fun versions of Ken there is. Amongst all the Street Fighters, I just want to play more of them. That's the best thing I can tell you guys right now to try to make your Street Fighter V online experience in the beta as good as it possibly can be, because it's a little rough right now. And right now, the best thing you can do is just get familiar with your characters, get familiar with training mode, and learn a couple of bread and butter combos, because there's a very good chance that stuff isn't going to be changing when the game does launch a little bit down the line. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'm going to be playing Street Fighter V as much as I possibly can with these little, local tests until the beta is officially back, and trying to figure out how the netcode works, how better ways we can optimize things to actually make it play better. Don't forget, if you're playing on a laggy TV, guys, probably a good idea to turn it to game mode as soon as possible so you don't experience any additional lag with your inputs actually hitting your TV signal. As always, guys, thank you a ton. My name is Max, and I'll be back with more Street Fighter V coverage as soon as possible.
You win!